We would like to thank LSR for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank video podcast. LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets. We are kicking off episode number 11 on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I'm your host, Jason Duhe. Alongside of me is Hall of Fame head coach Frank Monaco. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to recap some Week 10 matchups in LHSAA. We're going to also take a look at some of the games down the pipe in the LHSAA playoffs. We're going to talk some local college football, LSU, Tulane, Nichols, and Southeastern. We'll talk some Saints football. We have special guests tonight, analyst Rene Nadeau. And in the final segment, Coach Monica is going to ask the question, when will fans say enough? So without further ado, we want to go ahead and bring on head coach Frank Monica in our prep talk segment. Coach, we're going to go ahead into the playoffs at this point, and we got 10 weeks under our belt. How difficult is it to maybe sit at home if you are one of these teams that are kind of waiting with the bye week?
Well, that's something you always preach in the locker room. Say, guys, if we either fish or cut bait, you either picking up the gear this week and we all going to basketball, or we practice for another week and live to fight another game on Friday night. And so, I mean, it's really, really difficult if you're one of the teams that's eliminated from the playoffs, especially now because of the brackets and division of select and non-select. If you don't make the playoffs, I mean, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs at this point, because the playoffs themselves have been watered down drastically by the split, by the non-select select split. Because I've noticed that today, several of the brackets have teams that have not at least 10 teams that are either have at 500 or have a losing record. So if you're sitting at home, you just didn't take care of business during the year. You didn't work hard enough during the off season, and it might be a personnel thing, but somebody didn't do enough work in the off season. And that you don't win games on Friday night. You win games way back in January when you start the off season program, and all through the summer. That's when you win football games.
All right, Coach, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these recaps, as we're going to go ahead and start with Carr defeating Rummel 69-28. Nothing more we can say about Carr. Really good ball club. Took on a very talented Rummel squad and came away with a big victory, as they have against everybody.
Well, I think, the game was close for a little while. It was 27-21 for a little bit, and Carr turned on afterburners. And I think once Rummel realized what the faith was going to be, I think they went ahead and played some other guys, knowing that both teams were going to go into the playoffs. But, Carr's got a team, I think they might have 20 prospects from their sophomore to the senior class in there. So they're really talented. They naturally will be the king of the hill going to the playoffs, and it's going to take they're either going to have to have a bad night or somebody have a tremendous night to knock them out of the playoffs.
In our next game, we had St. Aug defeating John Curtis 28-20. We've talked about St. Aug quite a bit throughout the course of the season, telling everybody this is a team that you might need to be worried about if they're showing up on your November schedule. And this time it was Curtis who was the losing end of a really good ball club that's, I think, reached a bit of a turning point in their program under Coach Valdez.
No question. I think I just saw yesterday they just dedicated a new turf field, practice field, so that's going to be an addition to help their practices out and make them a even more efficient football team, and they won't have to look for a place to play or whatever, practice rather. You're right. They're very, very dangerous. Coach Valdez came in there. I think he interjected some confidence in these players, got them playing hard. They beat a real good, fine, solid John Curtis football team in a close ball game, and that's what they needed. They needed this. They won the last two in a row. They needed this going to the playoffs. They need to start ironing out some of those kinks and eliminate some of those mistakes. So you're right. They are a team that I think that you have to reckon with in the future.
In another matchup, we had St. Paul's defeating Covington 38-28 in that game. St. Paul's is a team that's won these bigger games, have done a really good job in district play, and go into the playoffs kicking the door down.
They certainly have the personnel. The quarterback is excellent. They have the personnel that can compete with anybody, I think, in the entire state. They won two real crucial games against a cross-time rival, Mandeville, then in-town rival, Covington. So that's two big wins for that program. So Coach Sears has been there a long time. He's a seasoned veteran coach. He knows what it's like to get in the playoffs and look for them to make some noise.
We also had Brother Martin defeating Holy Cross 18-0 in that game. Brother Martin down the stretch, winning the games that they needed to get a playoff berth.
And this loss, unfortunately, knocked Holy Cross out of the playoffs.
Yeah, and Brother Martin playing well. The last 2 games they've won, and the defense played real well against a real good Holy Cross offense. And Holy Cross is now they make the top 24, and you can easily see that in the Catholic League that they're playing. 6 of the 8 made it. Them and Warren Easton did not, unfortunately for them. But, like somebody said, I think Coach Manali from Jesuit said, if you took Warren Easton, for instance, and put them in another public school district, they'd probably win the district. But unfortunately, they're in the Catholic League, and their faith was not very good playing there.
We've had this discussion before about how loaded that league is and how it can kind of come to a detriment at a certain point. And this is when you see it. You get to enjoy the week in and week out grind, but unfortunately, a couple teams get left off, and this is one of them, as you mentioned, along with Warren Eastern, 2 very good ball clubs.
Along with Jason, the physicality of the league, it takes a toll on your players. In terms of that, you have to get so many emotions out of them. Not only that, the injury factor. And not many of them are going to have their 22 guys that started the season finish the season. If they do, they're very fortunate.
And we'll go ahead and take a look at our next game, which was Shaw defeating St. Charles Catholic 26-7. We've discussed Shaw at length throughout the year. Obviously, they're one of the top seeds for a reason, a very good ball club. And St. Charles could be a scary team lying a little bit closer to the middle of the bracket than they're used to.
Yeah, I think Shaw played well in the ball game. I think they answered. St. Charles went right down the field in the first possession, and it looked like they were going to make a game of it, and they did. I think that at halftime it was just a 1 score. The running back kind of took over the game when he needed to. I mean, it must be nice for Coach Tierney. You hand the ball off on 3rd down and 8, and the guy will get a first down. When most people are throwing right there. But he was excellent. He was hard to knock down, hard to get on the ground. But this could be a rematch that's coming. That St. Charles is getting better. Their quarterback, LeBlanc, is getting a lot of great experience there, and they got a couple playmakers on the offense. And if Shaw has Achilles' heel, I don't know if their defense is nearly as good as their offense.
In our next game, we had Newman defeating South Plaquemine 24-21. We've talked before about Newman's schedule, maybe not super strong down the stretch, but really did play a tough South Plaquemine opponent that's ranked near the top of their bracket and came up with a 3-point win.
Those guys down there, they play hard because they love their football. They play extremely hard. They probably, I would think that, have not seen them, but I would think that it might have been outmanned because Newman's defensive and offensive front is really, really big in terms of that. And I think they came with, and Newman needed to be pressed a little bit because their schedule was not really that taxing at the end of the year. I think they were top heavy in their schedule. So they needed a game like this to catapult them in the playoffs, where they expect to make a lot of noise with their high 2 seed. So let's hope that, because Coach Stewart has been there a number of times, and I'm sure he's been a bridesmaid. So I think he'd like to be the bride for once.
Also important to note, a 2 seed with only 8 games played during the regular season. So that's something to kind of keep in mind about the top heaviness of their schedule in terms of the early part of the season. Next game, we had Hawnville defeating Lakeshore 28-14. Coach Bourne has had his team ready to play the entire season and really had a fine season in his first opportunity as head coach at Hawnville.
I think, when you go to a new program like he's done, he's learning his team. It looked like they're getting better. And that's a fine Lakeshore team that he beat, and the fine coach and Coach Indes. So that's not a sloppy group, So credit to him. Game 10 after district play and a tie for the district championship and something like that. So this could be an interesting playoff for him. He got a nice draw going into the playoffs. So who knows what can happen here.
In our next game, we had Jesuit defeating Warren Easton 16-0. Jesuit took one on the chin just so we could go against Rummel, turning right around and beating this Warren Easton ball club. And we mentioned previously they're going to be left out of the playoffs, but this Jesuit team could potentially be one of those sleepers that's lying awake out there in the playoffs in the middle part of the bracket.
I think, Jason, everything in the playoffs to me points to the draw. And I mean, even though you might have if you have a real good draw, I think it can get you a long ways. It's not going to win you a championship, but it will get you deep into the playoffs. And having a bad draw will beat you sitting at home quickly. And Jesuit's got a decent draw. They're real good on defense, and their quarterback, they can throw he can throw it pretty well. And so their kicker had a great night too against Warren Easton. Actually ended up winning the game for them. And Warren Easton is a team that unfortunately won't be there, but they're certainly a solid opponent.
We also have Alexandria, who defeated Neville 42-16. We talked about this earlier. I don't think the fact that Alexandria won is what's shocking, but the margin of victory. This is an Alexandria team that becomes their first in school history to go unbeaten in the regular season. Really impressive win for this team, but that's been the type of season they've had thus far in the year.
You know, for years, Alexandria was sort of an average football team. They played well, and they would get there, and every now and then they'd have a good season, a little up and down, but they've never had this type of success that they're having now. So it's refreshing to see that, and and I think it's good for football. It's good for the community. And all of a sudden you raise those expectations. Now you would like to keep those. So Coach Bachman's done a phenomenal job over there. And you're right, they beat a quality team in Neville that's been to the Superdome a number of times. They have a lot of skins on the wall. So I'm sure the people over there are really excited in the central part of the state.
The sustained consistency from Alexandria is really what jumps out, as you've mentioned, Coach. Really an emergence over the past few years, and they're not looking to relinquish their spot on the podium anytime soon. Also, no. Ruston defeating West Monroe 36-0 in that game. Another shocking score. West Monroe maybe not had the best season this year. We know both teams are very big and physical, but Ruston, defending state champion, really handling business against a prestigious school in West Monroe.
No, I don't think that, you don't. It always takes a while to build and a while to fall. Ruston's not going to fall too far from that state championship. I mean, once you've been there, I think the kids know it, the coaches know it, they know what the expectations are, they know what the practice schedule is going to be elevated. They have an idea, they have their goal in mind. Everybody starts printing T-shirts about the Superdome and start talking about it little by little bit. But it's hard for coaches to keep them focused and say, wait a minute, guys, this you heard this thing one game at a time. Let's go 1-0. I mean, those are cliches that coaches use. It's so important. But, when the press and the student body and then everybody starts telling you, hey, let's go to the Superdome, it's hard for them to keep that focus. But the team that can will be the team that gets there.
Catholic High defeats Zachary in their game 73-55. I think somebody forgot to tell them they were playing football and not basketball. But what an offensive performance from both teams. Catholic, definitely one of those threats when you look at the bracket that they're going to be in Division I Select.
They have a great secondary. One of the guys is committed to LSU. Zachary's no slouch either. They've been to the Superdome. They have great players, and their quarterback for Catholic High has been very, very efficient. They have a great running back. Like Catholic High always has that. I mean, they're one of the premier schools in every year. They have a huge program. They have over 250 kids involved in football from the 8th and 9th to 12th grade. So they're always going to be there. They have a lot of kids to pick from. But that score is pretty shocking. That just indicates and shows you how good offensive players are nowadays.
Yeah, Coach, there's a pair of them back there. So it's the Bradford brothers that are back there in that secondary, both of them getting some major offers and major looks. And their team is riding high after, as we talked about, defending state champions, going into the playoffs after a big win against this Zachary ball club. We also had Chalmette defeating Salmon 34-28 in their game. A big win for Chalmette, claiming the district title and heading into the playoffs.
Coach Shooter does a great job at Salmon, got that program going, which I'm really happy for him. With Coach Tucker at Chalmette, they jumped into a new district this year, so this was different for them to be playing north of the lake, and which they wanted to do. They petitioned to get there, they got there, and they ended up winning it. And Coach Tucker's paid his dues because he's really worked hard and been there close, and so it'd be interesting to see how he does in the playoffs. But this is a huge win for him, and congrats on the district championship.
In our next game, we had a rivalry in E.D. White as they defeated Vanderbilt Catholic 21-14. We talked about how big this rivalry is in that area, and it turned out to be a pretty solid game. Both teams looking to make runs in their division in the playoffs.
It's exactly what we anticipated. Jason, we talked last week about how this was going to be a war, and apparently it was. E.D. White's got by, I think, a little bit. They might have a few more playmakers than what Vanderbilt has, but both of them headed for the playoffs, and in that division, it's going to be pretty tough at the top. And you can see one of these guys emerging. E.D. White's got a higher power ranking than Vanderbilt Catholic, but you can see one of these guys emerging in the Superdome.
Yeah, Edie White's been there. Edie White has made quite a few runs. It'd be interesting to see if they're able to replicate it. Vanderbilt Catholic trying to make their first run in a bit. In our last matchup, we had Jules Sumner defeating Amite 29-27 in a game that could potentially be rematched in a few weeks, but a nice win for Jules Sumner to take that district.
Jules Sumner's hard to defend. They run that wing tee, and not many people running that. And Amite is a spread team with a lot of speed. And but I didn't see the game, but I envisioned them running that wing tee to perfection against an Amite team that's really talented. But they live by the big play, where Jules Summers lives by the first down, grind the ball out, keep the defense keep his defense off the field. And this is a great matchup because they're right up the interstate from one another. So I think that this is probably one of the better crowds you're ever going to see at a football game. But hat for Jules Sumner, they win it like they are, and I think they would be one of the favorites to actually go out with the Superdome.
Coach, you mentioned the wing tee, and it's if you take enough rights, eventually you make a left. When you look at the history of high school football, for a long time, the wing tee was one of the predominant, if not the predominant, way to play football, offensive style of football. Now in this spread-centric universe where we see all these teams 4 wide, 3 wide, it's really kind of ironic to see the wing tee kind of come back and maybe be a thorn in some team's heel, being that it's almost taking a step back in the way offenses have progressed throughout the years.
The only reason that more people not use the wing tee is because it's very deceptive offense. And if it's run right, it's really hard to defend, very hard to defend it. And if you got some players to go with it, some skilled guys, you can't defend it. The only reason that people don't use it more, because it's not sexy. And coaches don't. They hear it from players. Oh, I want to throw the ball here. I want this many touches. I want to see the ball in there. The fans want to see the ball in there because that's what they see on Saturday and Sunday. And because of that, it doesn't have the appeal to the players. But as far as offense is concerned, there's no better offense than the wing tee offense that is run correctly. Now, I'm not saying just because you run it, you're going to win ball game. But let me tell you that it drives coaches, defensive coaches, crazy because you can't find the football. A really good quarterback that can hide it, and with all the play action in it and stuff like that, people all running free. What it does, it really negates what you're going to run against it. You cannot run a lot of defenses, a lot of different coverages against it. You can't do that. If you do, you're going to give up some real big plays, and some people still don't know how to defend it. But the only reason, as I said before, that it's not used because it's not sexy enough to the fans, to the players. The players are not excited because I'm a receiver. I don't want to run the wing tee and block. I want to catch 80 balls a year or something like that. But that's the only reason. As far as defending an offense, I think it's the hardest offense to defend.
All right, Coach, let's go ahead and turn the page as we move on to some college football talk. As we're going to start out with Alabama defeating LSU 42-13. Ugly game. There's no other way to describe it. The weather was ugly. The atmosphere, I can speak from experience. Coach, the atmosphere felt off. It felt like something was wrong in the air. And I even texted a few people. I said, if there's a bad call, I could smell it in the air. I'll leave it at that. I said, if there's a bad call, there's going to be things thrown on the field. And that's just the kind of game it was. I said the highlights were the announcer saying that Brian Kelly decided to kick off, the drone show at halftime, and when finally the game mercifully came to an end at the end of the fourth quarter. It was a bad football game.
Yeah, well, I just feel sorry for Coach Kelly. I know they're working hard and stuff like that. But the bottom line, a guy carries the ball 10 times for 140-something yards. That's the quarterback. Why, like anything else, the read option is nothing more than regular option. Somebody still has to be assigned to the quarterback. If possible, assigned 2. We said on the show last week that Milroe was not a great thrower. We talked about that, if you recall. But he can run. He's the fastest guy on the team, and he's huge. But why are you not assigning somebody to slow him down? But he made it really look too easy. Now, I get it. There was some turnovers in the ball game. I know that Nussmeier didn't probably play his best, but he's being pressured. I mentioned this earlier. I just think that there was one particular pass a fumble that he gave up because the linebacker came right up through the A gap in the center. Now, I want you to understand the center identifies the apex of every defense. In other words, he goes, if you ever watch a pro game or college game, you see the center point. he points to what they call the apex of the protection, meaning that the middle of the protection where that linebacker is. Well, anyway, that guy on the snap of the ball turns to his left because that's what the protection evidently told him to do, and the guard turns to his left, but the guy comes right up A gap. If you're not threatened by another player, you have to go find, the word was, go find work somewhere. So if you don't have anybody to block, go find somebody to block. That's what it means. Well, he lets him come right up the gap. That kind of set the tone of what was going to happen for the whole night. And Alabama is not that good. They're okay. They're not that good. I can see them even losing again. They certainly don't. I don't pick them to be in my top 12, to be honest with you. But LSU is just struggling right now to find their real identity, if they have one. Again, I go back and said they just don't have the players right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and they really need a Division I running back and maybe even a couple of receivers. And naturally, but you go back and look, the D line is just very, very average. The D line is probably like an FCS team.
Coach, I think when you look at what Milroe was able to do, really they could have run 3 plays the entire game. They could have run read option. They could have run power with the quarterback and maybe a stretch play, an outside zone with Milroe, and they could have put up probably even bigger numbers running 3 plays. And I think that's the biggest issue with LSU is that inability to slow down the rushing quarterback when they're able to put in an extra blocker with that running back. And it's not going to get any better.
It's sloppy tackling too, Jay. I saw some sloppy tackling. You know what I mean? And on a couple of plays, there was 3 missed tackles just on 1 play.
So moving on to the next week, they have to travel to Gainesville. They're going to play Florida, a team that hasn't looked too great by any stretch of the imagination. But we've talked about this week after week. This is an LSU team that could very easily win every game left on the schedule, but could very easily lose it. And right now, after taking a drumming like that, what are they going to have to come out and do in this game to kind of turn their fortune?
Well, if that quarterback comes back for Florida, Haraway, whatever his name is, if he comes back for Florida and he plays, because the answer, I think Coach Napier said that, and Coach Napier being in Louisiana at ULL all those years, and his neck is out there right now. There's a lot of talk about him in his future there. So I can see him playing LSU really, really hard going home. They weren't really competitive the other day against Texas, but I could see them coming home and say, "Hey, we got a shot at LSU football team." And the line today was 8, and that surprised me tremendously. And I don't know if LSU can cover that. I would like to see them do that and kind of win out, but I think it's be awfully difficult for them to do. Right now, they're just not playing with that confidence.
We also had Tulane, who defeated Temple 52-6. Talk about a team that's been taking care of business, trying to get their opportunity at an outside shot in the playoffs. Just keep handling business, and you'll hopefully have that opportunity at the end to maybe push a team out or nudge a team out. I think Boise right now is probably the front runner, but if Tulane continues to handle business, who knows what can happen? Yeah,
boys they haven't played anybody. They just squeaked by the other night. And but against Nevada, they haven't really played a tough schedule. But they only have 1 loss, and I think there'll be some other people there, but I don't know if they can win enough, and whether they'll be sex enough the football team to make the top 12, even if they win out. Now this is a big game against Navy. Navy's running that triple option. It's going to be really, really hard to stop. I've played in that stadium. It's really intimidating. It's a little small stadium, very intimidating. All the rituals that they have there, but prior to the ball game, they'll probably have the Black Hawk helicopters there at the ball game. They'll do some military drills there, and I mean it's just tremendous. They'll probably have a flyover, the whole thing. This is a big game for Tulane, and Navy's really going to build it up themselves, because they got knocked out of. They thought they might be one of the top 12 teams at one time. So this is a big game for the conference championship, and Tulane's going to have to play really, really well and be really focused. Now, as far as the personnel, Tulane should have better personnel than Navy. They should have better personnel than Navy, but Navy will be very disciplined. And like we said all the time in the show, the team that turns the ball over less, I think it's going to be the team that wins this football game.
Coach, how much should, when you look at these group teams, group of 5, 6, whatever it's called these days, how much should strength of schedule be weighted in this decision? When you look at Boise State, you mentioned they haven't played a tough schedule. They did play Washington State, which is a tough, maybe a more talented team than they're used to seeing, and they handled them. But they did play Oregon on the road and lost by 3. Meanwhile, Tulane played 2 solid ball clubs and came out on the short end. How much should the schedule that you choose to play in your non-conference schedule be factored in that decision?
Oh, I think it's everything. I think the toughness of the schedule is everything, Jason. From the standpoint of getting your players ready, the emotional edge of it, the injury factor, bigger players and stuff like that. I think it's like that's why the Louisiana high school did the right thing by going to a power ranking system. So you might have a bad record, but look who I played. And I played for the fans. I played it because I don't want these blowout games. I played it because I want competition in every ball game. I think that's what the power ranking system gives you. Just to put somebody in there because they have a gaudy record and they haven't really won anybody, and then somebody's going to run them over. It happened. Who was it? Louisville that gets crushed, or Cincinnati that gets crushed in the playoffs. I mean, that's not what people want to see. So they want to see a competitive football game and a team that maybe paid its dues to get there. And maybe they had some early injuries. And at the end of the year, when they get into that playoffs, maybe I can make some noise.
I think also part of that factor is the Heisman candidate running back that we see from Boise State. I do think that might, whether it should or shouldn't is a different argument, but I do think when you look at a human system, humans are flawed and can make some biased decisions, whether conscious or unconscious, that could play into it.
That point well taken. Just remember what happened at Florida State last year when that quarterback got hurt for Florida State. That hurt them. That's why they were not in it.
Right, 100%. We also have a big matchup that's going to be taking place this weekend. We did have Southeastern defeating Northwestern 41-0 in their game. And again, I'm really excited because it's going to set up this matchup that's going to be coming up next week. But Southeastern continuing to handle business against another Louisiana team, and that's what they've done over recent history. They've continued to handle business, whether it's in-state, whether it's in their division or conference. They've done a great job.
No question. Coach Selfo has done a great job of bringing that team from the ashes. They were 0-3 at one time at the beginning of the year. Now they're on the road. They're 6-5. They have a chance to go against Nicholls State. So I'll give them credit for what they've done. And they actually got a few votes in the poll. And so maybe with another victory there, and they could make some noise in the conference championship. But the current award is the class of their conference right now.
And then the other matchup we had, Houston Christian defeating Nicholls 24-21. Another tough loss for this Nicholls State team. But again, you kind of got to wipe that slate clean as you do move on to next week, where it'll be Southeastern traveling to Nicholls to play in that game in Thibodaux, Louisiana. Should be a fun one. Should be an exciting matchup, as it always is.
It always is. There's always the Thursday night matchup where a lot of fans can go, and there's no competition between LSU and Tulane on that particular night. So that's good. That is going to be a lot of fun game. A lot of local guys playing against one another. They played against one another in the high school. A lot of the coaches know one another personally, been on one another's staff. So Coach Rebo, we'll be excited about this one. Especially since it'll be home and all the tailgating and stuff like that. So it should be a fun atmosphere for everybody.
No high school, well, maybe not as much high school conflict either, as that game is at prime time in the playoffs, week 1 starting. And again, I think that's a perfect slot to have this game, and it should always be an exciting one.
Right.
We're going to go ahead and move on to some Saints talk, as the Saints this week, despite changing a few things under the coaching staff, defeated the Falcons 20-17. What does this win mean moving forward for the Saints? And do you expect to see a continued rate of success, or are they just going to be scraping by to find a few wins and see what they can manage with the schedule?
I know one thing it's so exciting to see a coach with a passion on the sideline running up and down, and not a guy just with the headsets on with his arms folded and sort of like being more of a spectator than a participant. You know what I mean? And it was just good to see Coach Renzi get this first win, but it was also good for as everybody said, the city, the Saints, and kind of motivate them a little bit. What really touched me. Here's a receiver that nobody wanted. All of a sudden, he comes there and catches 2 big touchdown passes, and the guy all of a sudden he's got a new lease on life. And all of a sudden, everybody thinks, well, maybe he's an all-conference player now or something like that. Maybe he's going to the Pro Bowl. And Carr looked like the Carr that we expected to be. He's a very good long ball thrower. And the offense, with Kamara breaking a record like he did for the most yards and breaking Mark Ingram's record, I thought that was very, very special. He runs extremely hard, and he's been there. He's, knock on wood, he's been durable for him and stuff like that. So they had a lot of positives in the ball game. Mario Davis, that linebacker, keeps them going. Warner, I think, that it's good. You see Tyrann Mathieu came up with a big pick at the end of the ball game. It's just good to see the enthusiasm. As I said before, again, execution fused emotion, and you saw that. You saw the execution, you saw the emotion. Group is a real good kicker. You just have to get him in position to win games and stuff like that. But listen, this was not a slappy team. Atlanta was a very good football team. I think they'd won like 4 in a row, something like that. Now, but everybody wants to expect to see the same result. It doesn't always happen like that. But if they can put this one together against Cleveland, they're going against Jameis Winston, which is a guy that they should know well. They've seen him in the locker room for the last few years and stuff like that. So let's hope and pray that they can have success against Jameis Winston. And you remember last time we saw him was the infamous play where they ran the ball when they're supposed to take a knee. So this is going to be an interesting scenario. I'm sure that will come out.
Coach, and for obvious reasons, you always talk about the coach's perspective when a coach is parted with ways in the middle of the season or at the end of a season, for example. But I think it's a very honest take when you look at the Saints that it felt like their energy was low. And you even mentioned, quoting you, you said they looked energized against the Falcons. How much can an energized ball club or a spark in the middle of the season jolt the team back to life and allow them to finish out the season with more energy and maybe a few more opportunities to make a run in some games that they might not otherwise?
If it's sincere, Jason, if that spark is sincere, it's not just jumping down and being high schoolish or whatever. But if they put in the work and the time, and if they've done the work, I heard that they had extra practice sessions, a little bit more time. All of a sudden, it's harder to surrender. The more work you put into something, it's harder it is to surrender. And the guys appreciate that. But more importantly, they appreciate winning, and they understood what got them there. Not just going through coach's favorite expression, you're going through the motions. That means you're not playing with any passion, you're not playing with any intensity, and you're not playing fast enough. But the players will see through that. They'll see through Coach Renji. Is he just jumping around like that? Or does he really mean it, and we really trust him? And if this guy really passionate about us, he's really passionate about winning, they will see through that. And if they are, they will motivate them to more victories. If not, and they'll be the same old Saints again.
All right, Coach, that'll do it for our first segment. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we will have special guest Rene Nadeau joining us. So don't touch that dial. You're watching on Varsity Sports Now.
We would like to thank the Accardo Law Firm for being a supporter of the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
Tonight, our special guest is a former all-district running back at John F. Kennedy. He also played football at LSU and is the color analyst for Fox Sports LHSAA Game of the Week. I want to bring on our special guest, Rene Nadeau. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's broadcast. And I've been following your work for quite some time, and I know how plugged in you are with the recruiting scene in Louisiana. Are there any guys out there in the local New Orleans area that might be getting some calls late about some big opportunities here in recruiting?
Well, one guy, I'm going to put my glasses on real quick. You know, the running back from Riverside is Dedrick Lasty is a kid that, you know, he's 5'5", and when you see that, you think of a Howard Stevens or you know, a Darian Sproles, something like that. He's getting offers now from Louisiana College, Centenary, you know, schools like that. And you know, 5'5", 135, as Frank can attest to, you have to get a program that's going to kind of can go back and had maybe a player of that dimensions played for them that they can identify with and feel like you know, that they can utilize in a lot of ways. But surprisingly, he made a visit to LSU, and I know one would think somebody who's 5'5", 150 pounds or 145 pounds may not fit well in the SEC, but you know, you look at Trendon Holiday, and he's not quite as quick as Trendon Holiday, but he's about the same size. And Trendon Holiday was utilized in returns and jet sweeps and things like that. I know it's a long shot, but if an LSU school were to see some value, it may show you that perhaps a Sun Belt or an AAC school, or you know, would a Tulane look at him or something like that, or obviously you know, Southeastern Nichols, McNeese, would a school like that take a long shot and look at him? You know, so I think he's going to play in college, and that's just one name who's doing an outstanding job for Riverside. But there's a lot of talent every year. The New Orleans metro area turns out over 40 guys who are on NFL rosters. They go to show the kind of talent and the coaching that takes place in the southeastern portion of Louisiana. So there's a lot of talent.
Rene, my questions, I saw the kid from Shaw last week, the Parker kid. I don't know if there's a better back in the state because he's thick, he's well chiseled. He's already, I mean, he's one of the better running backs I've ever seen in high school. And he took over the game against St. Charles Catholic, which went against a real good defense, I thought. And I mean, he made plays. He's really a good player. Number 8 for Shaw. I know Hallen Berry, everybody's promoting him, but the problem I see with him is the level of competition he's playing against is not there. I mean, compared to a guy that's playing 4 or 5A level. Now, he might end up being a great player. In regards to the Lasty kid, you know, I think the kids are like that is very electric. He's good at special teams. The only issue you're going to have, does he have to pass block on a linebacker that's 240 pounds? That's going to be the issue. So that means when he's in the ball game, he's either carrying the ball or throwing it to him. So that sort of thing. But who else out there that you kind of like?
A guy I like a lot, and I like the young man from Harvey as well, from Shaw. But the guy Nate Shepard from Mandeville, who's hurt right now, who's already committed to Duke. His brother is playing at Colorado, is one of the all-time leading receivers at Vanderbilt before he transferred over to Colorado. But Nate Shepard is a guy who can do it all. He's about 195, maybe 200. Can run between the tackles, can pass block, can catch out of the backfield. He can do it all. Return kicks. He had 6 touchdowns in one game this year. Unfortunately, he went down. Not sure if Nate Shepard is going to be available for the playoffs. But Mandeville has about a 6 or 7 seed, and I think that's a team that you need to keep an eye on in that level. Mandeville can certainly go far if Nate Shepard is available.
That's what I wanted to ask you, Coach. The next thing I wanted to ask you about, what team, who can beat Carr out there in that division or anywhere in the state? Who can beat them?
Alexandria would have a chance. Alexandria, I think, has a chance. They got the running back that's committed to LSU. And you may say this is crazy, but on a given night, I think St. Paul's or Rummel could give them a good game. And if they're on, I think Rummel or St. Paul's can certainly play at that level. But Alexandria is certainly a team that can stay step for step.
The only thing I heard about Alexandria is their defense. I know Coach Bachman does a great job, but they've given up a lot of points up there. But they've played a hellacious schedule, and I think you're right. You're right about that. Really, let's go. Let me jump to college real quick for you. What do you think is the issue? What's going on at Tulane, and do you think that they have a shot to possibly be a bracket buster?
Well, you know, the thing is they're at 25 right now, and as you know, things would have to happen above them. I think there's a great chance. This will be certainly a test against Navy this coming week. And Tulane is a very heavy run offense. They had 54 touchdowns this year, 28 coming via the ground. Then they play Memphis Thanksgiving Day. And then if they win those two, they'll play for the championship. Things would have to happen above them, like a Boise State would have to lose a couple of games, and maybe a couple of teams rated ahead of Tulane something would have to happen for them to jump from 25 into that top 12. It's going to be a quantum leap if they make it. But certainly, I think Coach Summerall, I don't say has elevated the program, but he's kept what Willie Fritz had. And he's maybe taken a step or two forward. And the whole coaching staff and players have bought in, and he's really got that program headed in the right direction, offensively and defensively. And I tell you, the future is certainly bright at Tulane with Coach Summerall.
I agree with you. And he's developed some depth. He's developed a lot of depth. He's got a couple guys, and the injury bug has been, sort of been nice to him so far. He's had a couple guys been in and out, but he's developed a lot of depth. He's he's a very, very personable guy. And, I'm hoping, and there's already rumors about him. And if he wins out, there'll be more rumors, because there'll be people, jumping from one school to the other. And I'm sure he's Kentucky, he's been rumored there since he played there and stuff of that nature. So we hope and pray that he can stay at Tulane and build it from there, because it's pretty impressive. They're starting to get crowds now and the whole deal. Rene, let's talk about up the street. You know a lot about them. You follow them personally. You played there. And let's talk a little bit about LSU. I know Coach Kelly's getting some heat, and I think really unwarranted. But let me hear your thoughts, and then I'll share with you my thoughts.
Well, I got to tell you that I picked LSU to finish 9-3 earlier this year, and they're about where I thought they would be. And LSU is just, I think, a lot of fans close to the program don't recognize or say that LSU is just not deep in a lot of areas. They're just not loaded with pro prospects, and the offensive line is kind of underachieved a little bit. The receivers, I mean, you lost 2 first-round picks last year. And the receivers that are replacing them are not nearly as good as the guys they replaced. And Nussmeier is not Jaden Daniels. He's just not the same quarterback. And the fact that, as you know better than I, Frank, since the running game is not succeeding, it's putting that much more pressure on Nussmeier. He's got to bail that offense out with his arm. He does make some bad decisions, and sometimes he feels pressured, like he has to carry the whole load on his shoulders. But the running attack has really made LSU one-dimensional and put even more pressure on that offensive line and Nussmeier.
Now, I agree with you totally. I mentioned on the show a couple of times. Number one, from the very beginning of the season, I think Kelly's an excellent coach. I think he's got a good staff. He doesn't have a roster. He doesn't have the personnel on defense. There's not one, I think, All-American on the defense side of the ball. There's not a first-round draft choice on that side of the ball, which I'm sad to say that, because I remember recruiting against them at Tulane. They always had the prettiest defensive lineman you've ever seen. And I mean, they always 6 inches across the eyes. I mean, they could run and I mean, they were athletic. They could have been fullbacks, but they don't have those guys. I know they lost a couple guys. Decided to go to the draft, which I thought one of them, Mason Smith, had no business doing that this early, and stuff like that, because I didn't think he was very good last year for him. But the only player that's actually being consistent is probably Weeks. The secondary is just average. And we said this on the show from the very beginning. They were going to give up a lot of points. And my take is that Nussmeier, you're right about that. You're exactly right. You nailed it. They're putting a lot on him. They're asking him to throw the ball upfield. It's a pitch and catch offense. They throw no bubble screens. They throw no screen passes, no hitches, no slants. I mean, it's not quick stuff. The other night, the center and left guard both turned. That's part of the protection. It turned, but when you're not threatened, you come back and pick the A-gap up. They let the A-gap guy come right through and hit Nussmeier, and he fumbles. Well, it made him look bad, but he was not the culprit on the play. And, I mean, just little different things like that. And their kicking game, since Kelly's been there, has been horrible. It's been, and you know that. I mean, I don't know if they have one return. They might have one against What's the Matter You or somebody like that. But it certainly, they don't do anything with their special teams to help themselves out a little bit. Now, their field goal guy has been okay, but I think it all goes to personnel. And I think the posse is coming. I think he's got some good kids coming. But how soon in that SEC with that schedule can they turn it around? You said 9-3. I think they'll be lucky to run the table to finish off these last 3 games. But Florida, Vanderbilt's gonna be tough on them, and I think that's gonna be tough. We don't like to see that, but the 1.5 games after the half of the Texas A&M and the Alabama game really didn't show much promise.
And the thing is, you know this better than I because of your deal with the running backs. You know, not having John Emery with his experience and Logan Diggs leaving to go to Ole Miss, that was valuable experience in a running back situation that, as you know, Frank, you can't replace that because those guys with experience in the SEC, Logan Diggs and John Emery, knew how to pass block. They knew how to, you know, maybe if the hole was not there, they'd go to the weak side and things like that. And Caden Durham, a freshman, has done well, but he doesn't have that SEC type experience. And so losing those two running backs via the transfer portal and Emery from their injury really hurt their running attack.
You know, Rene, in college football, the number one thing, a guy could be, he might gain 6,000, 10,000 yards in high school, but when he gets to college, he's part of the protection. In a six-man protection, he's number 6. So he has to learn in a passing game, especially a drop-back passing game, he has to protect. That little running back is excellent with the ball in his hand, but when he has to block a bigger 6'4" defensive end or linebacker or something like that, it's a mismatch. And it happened in a ball game just the other night. So that's one thing that people that take for granted. It's not just the offensive line. Tight ends and running backs are part of the protection process. And that's another thing. I think Nussmeier is I think is a good quarterback, but what they're giving him to do, I think, you know, they're asking him to step back and play pitch and catch and throw deeper routes. And I don't think if you have time, I think their right tackle struggles. I think the right guard struggles, you know, in pass protection, you know. So, but anyway, I really think I go back to the roster. I just don't think that they're there yet when it comes to that they don't have the speed you normally see from LSU. I mean, you used to be able to see speed all over the field in the secondary. And, you know, there's not a boy dog in that secondary, you know, and stuff like that. So anyway, let's move on a little bit, Rene, if you don't mind. Let's talk a little bit about the Saints a little bit. What's your take on Darren Ridgey and what's happened this past weekend?
You know, Darren Ridgey is a guy that, you know, he hits the right buttons. And the fact that, you know, this past week at practice, he did little things that a coach like yourself would understand. You know, if that guy at practice dove for a pass and was on the ground, or a defensive back was on the ground, he'd exhort him, get up, kind of making sure that they practice, they play like they practice, and don't lay on the ground, get up off the ground even at practice. He changed the locker room around a little bit, and what he did was, you know, he didn't move anybody off the same block, and he houses off the same block, but he put the school teachers in a couple of areas, in a couple of houses on one block, maybe the salespeople, the truck drivers, and he moved people of same kind of positions and put them in the same area. You can walk across the locker room and visit, but you kept all the quarterbacks together, the tight ends, the wide receivers, the linemen, and he speeded up the pace of practice, which was interesting. Derek Carr said something like he had never passed that much in practice in his entire career, never thrown that many passes. So he speeded up the passes and he challenged the players and made them feel like this practice is not going to be a walkthrough. It's going to be a practice. And I think he got a lot I think it certainly, you know, gave him results. And can he push the buttons? Out of the remaining 7 games, the Saints may be favored in 3 or 4 of those games. Now, against the Packers and the Commanders, no, they will not be favored. But against the Raiders and the Browns this week, they're favored. The Giants come to town, or they play the Giants on the road, and then they play the Rams in the Superdome. So 4 of those games, at least 3 of those games, the Saints could be favored. I don't think they're going to run the table, but they'll have more wins than one would anticipated just a couple of weeks ago.
That's you know, Rene, I well said. What's refreshing, when he was a special team coach, I've always liked him as a special team coach. I've watched him coach and talk at clinics and stuff like that. He's excellent. He's always had fire. It is so refreshing to see an NFL coach jumping up and down on the sideline and not being stoic with their arms folded and just watching the game, so to speak, and almost falling asleep. It's so refreshing to see an NFL guy do that. He was coaching with passion the other day. Now, maybe he might not do that in the future. And I just like to hope that maybe he can win, get a few ball games and keep him maybe on a permanent basis. I know that's what he's going to fight for. And the reason I say that, I've been there before when the staff was actually released. And boy, when you're a lame duck coach, it's miserable because you have to coach the team and really not knowing whether you're going to have a job or not. Now, he's one guy, but you got to remember, they're at least on a pro level, there are another 15, 20 guys that are impacted by that hire. So I was so impressed with him. and the way they won it with the blocked field goal and things of that nature, and the defense came on, had to hold twice within the last couple of minutes, and just to prevent them from kicking a field goal to tie it. I really was impressed with his demeanor on the sideline, and it looked like, I have a saying, Rene, and I think Jason, our host right here, can attest to this because he played for me, that execution fuels emotion, and when you execute and you do something great like a pass or a defense or a fumble recovery, all of a sudden you see the emotion come out of your football team. So, but you have to execute first, and I was really impressed with that on Sunday.
And I tell you what, you know this better than I. You don't win the games above the shoulder pads, and the players have bought in, and they believe now. They may believe they're a better team than they were 2 weeks ago, and that makes a big difference.
No question. Renee, I want to ask you this. Now, I just wanted to get your opinion. What do you think about the direction of where college football is headed with the transfer portal, the NIL thing? Do you have a crystal ball? Can you tell us all what's going to take place, or at least have an opinion?
No, but I talked to a really good friend of yours and mine last week, Burton Burns, and we talked about that at length a little bit. And I'm a little concerned about the NIL. I think if they can put a cap on it and kind of organize it a little bit more. But now when I hear things coming out about high school NIL, it certainly scares me and concerns me a great deal. The transfer portal they can get a hold of that some kind of way. I think the transfer portal transferring every year, somehow I have to get a hold of that because it's going to be tough to coach in an environment such as that. But the NIL, if they can get a handle on it with some type of cap and maybe govern that a little bit better than it's been governed before, it'll make it a little more palatable. But right now, it's just it's just all over the place like a fire hose on full speed. It's just shooting all over the place. But I think in the next year or two, they'll kind of tone it down and get a better handle. The genie got out of the bottle pretty quickly, and they couldn't put it back. And right now, they're just dealing with it.
No, I agree with you. I really don't know. I don't know if anyone has a quick answer. I saw that the high school they have it on the agenda for January. Now their rule supposedly is going to be a one-time thing. That would help the colleges out if they made it a one-time thing or something like that. But the NIL thing, I think Kelly has alluded to that he's not going to go out and buy players. You understand? You have to give them something. Maybe they can be across the board or something like that, Rene, because I don't know. I just think that college sports as we know it is not going to ever be the same, in terms of that. But who knows? I mean, who knows? But who do you see if you had to pick someone? And I'm going to talk about this later on. If you had to pick someone, who's your top 2 or 3, let's say 4 teams that might be in the college playoffs?
Oregon for sure. I think Texas will get in there. I think Ohio State is another, and I think Georgia. They dropped that ball last week. I think Georgia is a much better team than they showed last week, and a team. I don't think they'll get in the Final Four, but I'm doing a story that you might be interested in reading on the 1967 and 2024 Indiana Hoosiers, and I'm talking to players tomorrow who played for that 1967 Hoosier team, and kind of like the job they've done, Signetti has done at Indiana. Undefeated Indiana is off this week, but plays Ohio State the following week. I don't know if Indiana can take him down, Frank, but that's a real Hoosier story. They've done a great job in Indiana. But Oregon, if I had to take a guess, I say Oregon is going to hold up the crystal when the confetti comes down.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun because I think there will be some more upsets along the way, and I think you're going to see 2 or 3 teams that have 2 losses there. And I don't know, I'm going to talk about it later because I think there's some dark horses in there that might jump into that top 12 before it's said and done. I really think that there's some people masquerading as a good team and that are not that good. But I think to win championships, you have to be good on defense. And I don't see enough of them out there that are really good on defense because everybody's into the throwing the game, and they do the rules allow you to be real good on offense. With the lineman being downfield, the ball behind the line of scrimmage, different things like that. One rule that comes to mind, Rene, and I'll let you go. I know you have a family to take care of. But one rule I like to see in the NFL that pass interference rule, because a spot foul from that place. That's a ludicrous rule, especially the way it's called because it's so inconsistent. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. I'm on board with you on that. Yes.
Yeah.
I really am. And it changes the game quite a bit when they mark it, when they do mark it. That certainly changes the complexion of the play in the game.
No question. Well, Rene, listen, thank you so much for being there. You've tremendous insight. You've always been a good friend. You've always called and we always shared ideas. We kind of lie to one another, which is that's really good. And so I hope we can continue to be friends and communicate. If there's a question or something I can help you with, or I have no answers, just questions, but something like that. But
well, you're near and dear, Frank. You're near and dear. You're a very, very treasured friend of mine, and long relationship, and I value your opinion and your friendship. It means so much to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rene. And listen, good night, and please stay in touch with us, okay?
God bless, guys.
Where are you going this weekend?
Hanging out, but I got the Saints game. I work for CBS Radio in New York, and I cover every Saints game for New York. I do reports, and I have to do Pelican reports and all. But I've been with them 35 years, so I'll be at the Superdome on Sunday covering the Saints and the Browns.
Well, good. Pull them through, okay? Good, Rene.
We'll try. Have a great one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
We would like to thank Gulf Coast Sponsors for being a sponsor of the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
We would like to thank Riverlands Insurance for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Welcome into segment 3 of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I'm your host, Jason Duhe. Joining in is going to be head coach Frank Monica. And let's go ahead and jump into the Let's Be Frank segment. Coach, where tonight you're going to answer the question, when will fans say enough is enough?
Let me tell you my take on this. After you watch the NFL games and you see some of the things that are taking place in the NFL games, you see a lot of players not playing. And I'm asking, when are the fans going to finally say, wait a minute, I'm not going to pay X amount of dollars per ticket to see this product. I want to see the best players. Is fantasy football keeping the NFL alive? I mean, is that the interest level of the NFL where players and a lot of guys already said, wait a minute, I'm out of the league already because my best players got hurt. They're not even playing. In baseball, for instance, let's take baseball. These are guys that we're paying them $20 million and they're hitting 220. I mean, when are the players going to get their value? I'm a fan. I'm paying my season tickets. That costing me money. I'm sacrificing other type of things to my family to watch a major league game because America, sports is so big in America. With all sports, you talk about soccer, swimming, all sports. It's just so big. I mean, we revere our athletes. But when is it going to be enough? Well, I cannot afford to go see it. And I don't want to see in the NBA, for instance, these great athletes, but they can't stay healthy. I'm looking at the Pelicans. Start 5 guys, for the starting 4 out of 5 can't play. One guy, he gets hurt again, soft tissue injuries. And what's going on? You're playing basketball. This is not NFL. I can understand in NFL you're getting hurt, but if I'm paying this much $600 for a ticket, I want to see the best players on the court. I want to see the guy, not a 24-year-old he's given a day off for rest. He's 24 years old, and and they don't play every day. It's like every 2, maybe 3 times or 4 times a week, and something like that. So here's starting pitchers in baseball. They can't go over 5 to 6 innings, and they pulled from the lineup. Was there a 20-game winner this year? No, there wasn't. There were a couple guys that were close, but there weren't. I mean, we're getting all these millionaires, and yet we're not getting the value back as a fan. We want to see the best players out there. These guys, all I hear is they're bigger, stronger, and faster. They got more knowledge. We know more about our diets. They have off-season therapists and sports psychologists. They have all these things. But all of a sudden, these agents get involved, and the agents are telling them different things. The other part of this equation is that you have the Players Association that is very, very strong. And if they don't like what they see, they can always boycott. Say, hey, let's hold out. Let's hold out and get more for it. I just think if I'm paying that much money and I'm a season ticket holder, when do I say it's enough and I'm not going to do it next year? I'm not going to pay this money because I want to see a better product on the field, whether it's football, whether the NBA, or whether it's baseball, or whatever the deal might be, because these tickets are extremely, extremely expensive, plus the parking pass. And you can see people dialing out between $5,000 to $8,000 just to watch a regular pro game. So when are the fans going to say, I'm not supporting that anymore, and I just want to see a better product on the field?
Thanks, Coach. And we'll go ahead and turn our page to Blitz the Ball, Coach, where tonight Coach is going to answer the question, do better teams have a true tight end compared to spread teams?
Oh, man, I tell you, this is fun because my good friend Brent Remedy, he said he used to beat Duffy Dodlow in the backyard with his technique. And you want to say, Duffy said you never have beaten him. So I hope you're listening to this, and I think you demand a rematch, okay? But anyway, Brent's question was about the tight end. He said, why aren't people using the tight end more traditionally and stuff like that? Let me show you. I got a brief graphic, and I think his question is well-founded. A tight end, number one, can help you block. It can help you run the football a lot better. We all know that. He's a bigger player. He's a versatile player. He's a player that can run up the field. He's a versatile player that can get into blocks. He can block downfield. He's not like an offensive lineman. He can catch the football. And tight ends have a tendency they can keep the middle of the field honest. In other words, you see them, they're not going to be up the boundary that much because of that location where they start from. So they'll control the middle of the field. I remember Drew Brees, which made a fortune. He used to love to throw to his tight end. And remember when Graham, he was a basketball player. When Drew Brees got that guy to be all pro because he was a 6'7" guy in the middle of the field. Tight ends are also very, very versatile players to move outside. And when you move them outside, they become a mismatch out there on a linebacker or some strong safety that's covering them because of the side. Look at Kelsey. For instance, you see Kelsey in tight. You see him outside. You see him as the number 2 receiver in the slot, and sometimes from the outside. So tight ends are very, very valuable to a football team. I don't see a lot of people using them enough. And, in college, you don't see many of them. You see a few people use it because a lot of the wide receivers become more valuable than some of the tight ends. But yet, when you have a tight end in the game, what happens, a lot of the defensive coordinators don't really know how to line up against them because this guy can block, he can get off the line of scrimmage, but how do we defend this guy? Okay, what I have here, I just want to show you different positions with the tight end right here. Now, in the terminology in football, the tight end is normally referred to as the Y. Okay, so receiver go X, Y, Z. The split end is normally the X, the tight end's Y, and the Z is normally the flanker, or he's the guy that's off the ball. So when you hear guys say Y, that means that he's the tight end also. If you notice the first diagram at the top is traditional, 2 back set, the tight end in tight next to the tackle, probably with a 3-yard split. Now from there he can block, he can be a pass receiver. He also runs crossing routes. From there he can cross the field easier than the receiver can, because he's in the middle of the field. Or he can run naturally a wheel route or the middle of the field. Or he can run what they call a naked route, which is a slam release to the flat. If your second run down is what they call, he's off the line of scrimmage in the second one down. You can see that right there, that where the tight end is located, where the Y is. So some people call that the flex back right there. Or if it's a versatile player, a big full back, or another tight end right there, you see Kelsey lined up in that position an awful lot. From there, he can go in motion to the other side, and he can actually change the strength of the defense, or he can go to the flat from there. The last diagram down at the bottom, he lines up as a wide receiver. It's a 2-by-2 set where the 2 receivers to the right, 2 receivers to the left. He lines up as a receiver, and he can run a lot of routes from there. Normally when he's there, He's not a blocker unless the play is an outside run or something like that, or some type of screen pass to the outside. But a tight end can really helps disguise formation and personnel groupings. And people up top will look at the sideline when they see a tight end coming into the ball game. They have to swap personnel to offset him. So in other words, if they don't want that mismatch, they don't want a small linebacker on a tight end, so they'll swap personnel when they see a certain number coming in the game. That's all about scouting and stuff like that. So when you look at that in All-State in Louisiana, for instance, they put one tight end in the ball game for the All-State when they vote on players. And most of them don't understand. Most people don't even have a tight end to put up. So a lot of them have receivers there, but a lot of schools and a lot of districts don't even have tight ends. So, but I do think they're a vital part of any good offense. And again, they could really, really create havoc for you. So, Brent, that's my opinion. And maybe you can use that against Duffy in your next touch football game in the backyard.
All right, Coach, in our last segment before we go to Lock of the Week, we're going to go ahead and talk about At the Water Cooler, where we want to hear your predictions on the high school and college football playoff. Well,
first of all, I'm saying, Jason, what I looked at, I think there's some imposters. And I think what I mean by that, I think there's some imposters that headed for they might make the top 12, but I think they're only because of the voting, the Northeast part of the Big Ten, the Penn State, the Ohio State, they're going to get a lot of favoritism when it comes to that, because that's the way it's been for years. I think that Penn State and Alabama are imposters. I just don't think, and I think Tennessee is one. I don't think that those teams, and I might be all wet. I think that Texas, I think a team that could be a buster is SMU. I think the SMU can score. They have one loss on the year, but I think that they're a pretty good football team. Notre Dame is coming on. I saw everybody wrote them off when they lost to Northern Illinois, but they're coming on. So that they can be a team. The best offense is Miami, but they also have a putrid defense. But they have a great offense, probably a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. I don't see anybody dethroning him. Be on the lookout for Indiana. We talked about them earlier. I think Indiana is a solid football team. They play very good complementary football. And the dark horse to make it, I still think they're going to make it, is Colorado. And if they get by this weekend, I think Colorado will make it. But I think the imposters will be Texas, in my opinion, has the best personnel. They have the best personnel, but sometimes Texas is too finesse-oriented. I think they have the best personnel to get there, along with Oregon, and you could kind of see that. But I really think Penn State, Alabama, and people in Tennessee will be sort of imposters. And so my dark horse just to get there, I'm not saying they're going to win anything, will be somebody like SMU. On the high school scene, I'm going to go through a couple of things here on the high school scene. I'm going to basically jump over that first round matchups are really not that good. They have a few, but they're not worth even talking about the first round. The second round matchup, if they hold serve, and you're going to see a bunch of that first round, you're going to see a bunch of blowouts. You're going to see a bunch of guys look like they're ready to go to basketball, ready to pack it in. They haven't had good season. I'd be very, very surprised. You know, the old way, we were all together, and there wasn't a select, non-select when you had 1 versus 32. Several times I saw number 32 beat number 31 on the first round. That's never going to happen, not with this system, because number 32 right now, because of the split, is really somebody like number 48. So that's not going to happen. So that's why I'm jumping to, and I'm going to tell just a couple that I think that very, very that look really good that we'll keep an eye on. For number one, the non-select, Terrebonne and Hornville the second week could meet again. That was a good ball game the first time. Hornville got the better part of them. I think Terrebonne has really improved. Big offensive line. They're not great on defense, but Hornville is very, very improved. New coach, new system, new energy. So that could be interesting. Covington and Neville. That could be a second-round opponent. Covington and Neville, that Neville, of course, Covington would have to travel. Covington can score. Neville, I don't think, is the powerhouse that they used to be. I think they're human. Santamon and Airline, we'd like to see Santamon get past the second round. They've never gotten that far in the playoffs, but Airline is an undefeated team and seem to be very good. So, but again, these are not this week. They're second round game. I know in Division II, again, non-select, Lutcher and Cecilia. Cecilia, real good offensive team. Lutcher did not like this draw. Lutcher is a very good football number one draw. They're number one seed. in their division. I don't think Coach wanted this draw, and I haven't talked to him yet. I will call him, but I know that Lutz was not probably happy with this draw. So I know Duhe is probably saying, "Man, we got to get ready," but he's got the bye first, so he's got a couple of weeks to probably look at that. Jennings and Opelousas. I mean, both these are fine football teams. We said before, Opelousas is a dark horse in this thing. They've played a real rugged schedule. Jennings is a good football team. They have a Division I running back, so like they always do. 10 boys come from there. So that's, again, second-round opponents. We look at throughout crystal ball here. I'd be surprised if any of these get bumped off prior to that second round. Lakeshore and Iota. Lakeshore, they're a hard team to defend. Iota just got good players. They're solid. They're a very, very solid football team. Division III, St. James, the number 1 seed. It's funny, you got Lutcher and St. James from St. James Parish, both of them number one seeds in their respective division. They will play Kaplan. I had to look down the line to see if there's anybody that I thought could stay with St. James, and that division is not very strong. So I had to look way down the line to find a matchup here. Division IV. I read the South Plaquemine. Here's South Plaquemine. I don't know where they're going to see competition until maybe the Superdome. So this will be really interesting to see. Every other team on their side of the bracket has 4 or 5 losses. So I don't know where their competition is going to come from. And if they go to Superdome, they will meet probably Haynesville. That's been there a number of times. On the select side, I see STM St. Thomas More versus St. Augustine in the next round. A very interesting game, 2 high-powered offenses. St. Aug, is coming on, as we talked about earlier, Jason. They're coming on to be one of the better team. St. Paul and Alexandria, that could be another track meet. And again, we're going to second round, assuming that the first round will be taken care of. Turlings and Jesuit, another good matchup. Jesuit will get better. Jesuit looking forward to this. When you get in the playoffs and people don't know you, it's like, for instance, the Catholic League teams. When they get into the playoffs against other people, they're going to have an advantage. Of course, the same thing says true the other way. But the Catholic League team, they know one another in and out. They play against one another. They share the same tape, especially when you follow somebody in the schedule. So you're going to see the same guys over and over again. You're going to know what they do. That's not the case when you get in the playoff. Next in the selected D1, that they had a lot of great matchups here. Rummel and Catholic High. Of course, Rummel got to win the ball game before to get to Catholic High, and so does Catholic High. But that would be a rematch of the semifinal game last year. Catholic High went on to win the state championship, but Rummel and Coach Monica, I know, remembers this one because he had to go to the stadium over there in Baton Rouge and lost a tough one there. Acadiana and John Curtis, Brother Martin winner. That could be very interesting. Acadiana running that veer offense when you get to that form, and also it would really be ironic to see Acadiana and John Curtis both face one another. Two veer offenses. That would be very interesting. But of course, Brother Morton might have something to say about that. Division II, St. Charles Catholic, Madison Prep in the second round. St. Charles naturally got to win the game this week. Madison Prep is sitting there with a little higher ranking, but they beat U High 2 weeks ago. I don't know if Coach Stein is really happy about this draw, but you have to play the hand that you're dealt. So what do you do about it? I think his team has gotten better, and they played a rugged schedule, so they will not be surprised by anybody on their schedule from here on out. Shaw and Kennedy, dangerous game for Shaw because Kennedy's got some players. They don't have many kids on the team, but dangerous game for Shaw because now, but of course, Shaw can score and Kennedy can score. The difference is, can Shaw's defense stop Kennedy? Vanderbilt and E.D. White again. That could be another matchup in a couple of weeks. Very interesting matchup. Division III, we have Newman. And I think, Coach Stewart talked to him the other day. He's concerned about Calvary. Calvary down the run. But before Calvary, he said he really respecting Catholic of New Iberia, who handled Notre Dame of Crowley. So the Catholic New Iberia really got Newman's attention. Okay, and then you have Dunham, the number 1 seed against Notre Dame. That's the second round game. That could be very interesting to see how that shakes down because Notre Dame's always there. Coach Cook has got over 400 wins. He knows what it takes. But Dunham's got this big quarterback, and he's been unstoppable all year long. And lastly, I have Ascension Catholic in Riverside. Again, these are all games none of these are this week. Their projections down the line, and Ascension Catholic at number 2 seed, Riverside, be very interesting. I think Riverside has got a real good football team, but it looks like that bracket is really tough for this year.
All right, Coach, a lot of great matchups as we look down the stretch, and we can't wait to see some of these come to fruition. Some really exciting matchups. Again, there's still some good matchups lying out there this week. Captain Shreve and Evangel rematch. We talked that was a game where Evangel's quarterback went for 800 yards in the regular season, and I believe it was either 77 to 76 or something around that margin in overtime. So there's a few games out there that you'll definitely want to pay attention to in the opener, but down the stretch, always some great matchups. Now let's go ahead and look at our locks of the week. Coach, who do you like this week?
I tell you, I blew it last week with Georgia. This week I'm going West Virginia. West Virginia is given there will be a +3 against Baylor.
Coach, you lost it last week because I picked the same game. I'm the curse of death. So I'm going to go ahead and take BYU -3 at home against Kansas. They're 7-2 against the spread on the season. BYU's had a really nice run this season, although I'm picking them, so maybe I'm going to curse them this week. So we'll see. But we're going to go ahead and give you guys our social medias. Remember to follow us on Facebook at the Let's Be Frank Video Podcast. Follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok at the LBF Podcast. And that'll do it for tonight. So, Coach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
God bless everyone that watches our show and your families. And please pray for our country. Also, our guest speaker next week will be Coach Lou Valden, former Hornville High School coach and also a radio guy. So we're looking forward to hearing from Coach Valden. All
right, so that'll do it for us tonight. So, once again, for Justin Thomas, for head coach Frank Monica, I am Jason Duhe. And remember, let's lay bon ton roulette, let the good times roll.